welcome to the deep dive. You sent us a stack of sources focused on traffic safety, crash mechanics, and one concept. It just kept rising to the top as the absolute critical factor, and that is speed differential. Now, that might sound like a dry physics term, but we're really just talking about the difference in speed between your car and, well, anything else.
The car in the next lane, a stopped obstacle, pedestrian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you are looking for that ultimate shortcut to being a truly well-informed defensive driver, I think understanding this concept is it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We need to go beyond the usual don't speed advice and really extract the core factors that make these speed gaps so dangerous.
Right.
We're pulling from all these sources to give you practical, actionable insights on how to spot them, how to manage them, and how to respond. Because, while high speed is a risk, the severity of a crash, that is almost always determined by the mismatch in velocity.
Precisely. So let's start there. Let's get a definition, but make it actionable. What is speed differential in a way that matters to someone behind the wheel?
Okay, so at its core, it's just the difference in velocity between 2 points. But for driving, it immediately translates into something traffic engineers call closing speed.
Closing speed.
Yeah. And we deal with 2 major types. First, there's vehicle to vehicle. This is what most people think of. You're on the highway, you're doing 75, and the car you're about to pass is going 65.
So a 10-mile-per-hour differential.
At 10-mile-per-hour differential, your closing speed is 10 miles an hour. The real danger, though, is when that gap gets big. Say you're doing 75 and the car ahead is only doing 45. Now your closing speed is 30.
And the second type?
The second type, and this is often the most catastrophic, is vehicle to environment.
Okay.
This is when one of the objects has 0 velocity. It's stationary. So imagine you're driving 50 miles an hour and you suddenly come up on a stalled vehicle or a pedestrian.
Your closing speed is the full 50.
It's the full 50, exactly. And this is so dangerous because, unlike with 2 moving cars, the entire force of that impact gets absorbed by the one moving object hitting the stationary one.
Okay, so let's unpack that. This idea of closing speed and reaction time. That's the immediate practical impact for all of us, right?
Yeah.
When the differential is high, why does my reaction time just evaporate?
It's pure math, and it is absolutely ruthless. If you have a differential of, say, 30 miles an hour, you are closing the distance between you and that object at 44 feet every single second.
Wow, 44 feet a second.
Yeah. And the average human reaction time just to see it, process it, and decide to act is about 3/4 of a second.
Okay.
In that time, at 44 feet per second, you've already covered 33 feet. And that's before your foot even moves to the brake pedal.
Right.
You add in the time for the brakes to actually engage, and you've just eaten up a massive chunk of your stopping distance. A high differential just steals your time.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just about covering distance fast. It's about how quickly that safety gap between you and the thing ahead of you just collapses.
Exactly. And that collapse leads us right into the core dangers. We synthesized 3 major mechanics of these accidents from the sources. And the first one is predictably the increased risk of rear-end collisions. This happens where traffic flow gets choppy, around on-ramps, construction zones, or even just coming over the crest of a hill.
So is it generally worse when the fast car hits the slow car? Or is it the other way around?
The primary risk, just in terms of sheer numbers, is the faster car failing to see that differential and hitting the slower one. But there's a second danger, too. The slow driver, trying not to get in the way, might start braking or accelerating erratically, which is almost as dangerous.
I see.
The second mechanical danger, and this one gets overlooked a lot, is difficulty in merging and sideswipe accidents.
Ah, yes.
If you're merging onto a 70-mile-an-hour highway and you come on at 45, you've just created a massive 25-mile-an-hour differential. Now, that driver who has to slam on their brakes or swerve to avoid you has just been forced to create a new, dangerous differential with the car behind them.
So the danger isn't just between the 2 cars. It sounds like it immediately ripples outward. The person merging too slowly has potentially set off a chain reaction 3, 4, 5 cars back.
That is the key insight. The differential doesn't just affect 2 cars. It messes up the whole dynamic of the traffic flow. It turns a smooth system into a series of jagged, aggressive, and unpredictable responses.
Wow.
And that leads right to the third mechanical risk, unsafe passing maneuvers. When a driver gets stuck behind a huge differential like a slow RV on a 2-lane road, that pressure to get around them builds.
I think we've all felt that.
Right. So they attempt these risky overtakes in really bad conditions, which dramatically increases the risk of a head-on collision where the closing speed isn't the difference, it's the sum of both vehicle speeds.
Okay, so we have to transition from the metal to the mind here. We've established the mechanical risk, but you said earlier it directly triggers specific negative behaviors.
Yeah.
Is frustration just a personal flaw? Or is there something about the speed gap itself that inherently breeds aggression?
The sources are pretty clear that the speed differential is a primary trigger for aggression. It creates an environment that's just ripe for increased driver frustration and aggression.
So it pushes our buttons.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
When a vehicle disrupts the flow you expect, especially if you're late or stressed, you perceive that differential as like an intentional roadblock.
Right.
And that leads to tailgating, which is a direct attempt to visually shrink the differential, but it maximally increases the risk, and it leads to reckless driving. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
The slower driver gets stressed by the tailgater and often slows down even more, which just enrages the aggressive driver.
When people try those sudden aggressive moves to close a gap, slamming on the brakes, flooring the accelerator, they're basically compromising their own control.
Precisely. We call that compromised control and predictability. Any rapid acceleration or braking that's needed to bridge a big speed gap just shrinks your margin for error. If the road's a little wet or your tires are a bit worn,
That's when you lose it.
that's when you can easily end up in a skid or a rollover. Plus, when traffic flow is all jagged and unpredictable, it becomes nearly impossible to guess what other drivers are going to do, which completely undermines the core of defensive driving.
Before we move to mitigation, we have to talk about the physics of the crash itself. You said the math is unforgiving. We need a way for the listener to really internalize the relationship between that speed difference and the sheer violence of the impact.
This is the real aha moment. The damage in a crash is all about kinetic energy, and kinetic energy is proportional to the square of the velocity. What really matters is the difference in speed at that moment of impact.
Okay, give us an example.
Let's use a concrete one. Car A is going 50, it hits car B going 40. The differential is 10 miles an hour. Now imagine, car C is going 60, and it hits car D also going 40. The differential is 20 miles an hour.
Okay, so you double the speed difference, you double the impact force. That seems logical.
No, and that is the crucial misunderstanding.
Oh.
Because energy is proportional to the square of the speed, when you double the speed differential from 10 to 20, you actually quadruple the energy that has to be dissipated in that crash.
4 times.
4 times the energy. That exponential increase is why a seemingly small speed difference, say 5 versus 15 miles an hour in a rear-end hit, can be the difference between a little fender bender and a very serious injury.
That is the insight. The differential doesn't just raise the risk, it exponentially raises the cost if a collision happens. So what does this all mean for driving in different conditions? The tolerance for a speed differential must change based on the environment, not just the number on the sign.
Absolutely, you have to manage the differential based on the context.
Okay, so let's start with the big one, highway driving.
On the highway, everything is designed for high speed and consistency. So the number one rule is minimizing the differential in the passing lanes. This is exactly why the keep right except to pass rule is so critical.
Right.
A car doing 55 in the left lane of a 75 mile per hour zone is creating a 20 mile an hour barrier. It forces everyone behind them into this dangerous game of managing a severe speed gap.
And what about that merging issue?
When you're merging, you have to use that on-ramp to match the speed of traffic.
Where?
The source material is really emphatic on this. Merging too slowly is statistically more dangerous than merging slightly too fast.
More dangerous.
Yes, because the slow merger forces multiple cars already on the highway to brake hard, triggering that chain reaction we talked about. You're basically introducing a foreign, slow-moving object into a high-speed system, and the system often rejects it violently.
That is a fascinating way to put it. It's the opposite of what some new drivers might think. They think slower is always safer, but here it's demonstrably riskier.
It is. Now, let's pivot to urban and residential areas. Here, the tolerance for any differential just collapses completely.
Why?
Because the differential is no longer about cars, it's about people. The vehicle-to-environment risk skyrockets for pedestrians, cyclists, children. If you're going 35 in a 25 zone, that 10-mile-per-hour difference might seem small, but the chance of survival for a pedestrian hit at 35 versus 25 is drastically reduced.
So the threat shifts. On the highway, it's flow disruption. In the city, it's lethality to human life outside the car.
Precisely. And finally, we have to talk about adverse weather. Rain, fog, ice, the posted speed limit becomes totally irrelevant.
Hmm.
The differential has to be minimized across the board. If visibility means the safe speed is 40 on a 65-mile-per-hour highway, then all traffic needs to adapt to 40 to maintain a near zero differential. The one driver who insists on doing 65 is creating an unbelievably hazardous situation.
So let's talk proactive strategies. For the listener who gets all this, what are the key action items to mitigate the risk?
Mitigation really boils down to consistency in space. First, maintain a consistent speed. Be predictable. Use cruise control when it makes sense to match the flow.
Okay.
Second, increase your following distance. That 3 or 4 second rule, that's your buffer. It buys you back the reaction time that a high differential tries to steal from you.
And a third.
Avoid sudden maneuvers. If you have to adjust your speed or change lanes, do it gradually, smoothly. Any erratic move instantly creates a differential where there wasn't one, and it forces everyone else to react to you.
All right, let's put the listener in the driver's seat. Two common scenarios. First, you realize you are driving slower than traffic.
Yeah.
You're the one creating the problem. What's your playbook?
Your absolute priority is to minimize your disruption. You must stay in the right lane on any multi-lane road. The left lane is for passing, not for cruising below the speed of traffic.
Huh.
And crucially, maintain a speed that's safe, but not so slow you become a hazard yourself. A lot of places can actually ticket you for impeding traffic if you're going way below the flow, even if it's above the minimum posted speed.
And what if I really can't keep up? Maybe a mechanical issue or the conditions are just awful. Is that when I hit the hazard lights?
You should use hazard lights sparingly, only if you are a significant, almost static hazard. The best move if cars are piling up behind you and you can't safely speed up is to pull over.
Get out of the way.
Find a safe spot, a shoulder, a rest area, and just let that faster traffic go by. You take your disruptive differential completely out of the equation.
Okay, let's flip it. Now you're the one driving faster than the surrounding traffic. You have the power. How do you manage that safely?
When you're the faster car, your margin for error is smaller, and your responsibility is, frankly, higher. You must use the left lane for passing only. Get your pass done, and then get back into the right lane as soon as it's safe.
Okay.
And more than anything, avoid tailgating. Maintain that safe following distance. Driving fast and close is just a guarantee for a catastrophic rear-end collision if the car in front taps their brakes. And finally, signal your intentions early. Let everyone around you know what you're planning to do. Give those slower drivers the maximum amount of time to anticipate your next move.
All of this demands constant human vigilance. But, of course, technology is stepping in to help manage these speed gaps with systems that are way faster and more accurate than we are. Let's get into the tech.
The first, and probably the most common now, is adaptive cruise control, or ACC.
Right.
ACC isn't just about setting a speed and forgetting it. It's a constant differential management system. It uses radar or cameras to track the car ahead, and it watches your speed, their speed, and critically, your closing speed.
So how does that actively reduce the risk?
It creates a safety bubble. By automatically adjusting your throttle and your brakes, it makes sure your speed relative to the car ahead stays in a safe zone. It basically eliminates those little micro differentials caused by not paying attention. It smooths everything out.
Okay, what's next?
Next is automatic emergency braking, or AEB. This one directly tackles that sudden, high-speed vehicle-to-environment differential we talked about.
If the system detects a really rapid closing speed with a stopped object, a stalled car, a pedestrian, it knows a collision is likely, and it applies maximum braking force faster than any human could hope to. It mitigates the impact by shrinking that final speed difference.
And what about the systems where the cars are actually talking to each other?
That's vehicle-to-vehicle communication, V2V, and it's a total game changer for managing this stuff. V2V allows cars to just constantly broadcast their speed, their braking status, their position to all the other cars around them. And how does that solve a problem a human driver can't?
Latency and line of sight. If a car 3 vehicles ahead of you slams on its brakes, you won't know until you see the brake lights of the cars in between, and that takes precious time.
Right.
V2V bypasses that completely. Your car knows instantly that a huge negative speed differential has happened 3 cars up the road, letting you or the car's systems react fractions of a second earlier. And those fractions are the difference between a minor slowdown and a major pileup.
That is incredible.
And finally, you have simpler systems like traffic sign recognition. It just uses a camera to read speed limit signs and displays it on your dash, which helps you avoid creating a differential just because you missed a sign where the speed drops suddenly.
That brings us to the close of this deep dive. If you internalize one thing from our sources today, it has to be this. Speed differential is the invisible fault line on the road. It is the difference in speed that correlates most strongly with whether a crash happens and how bad it is, not just the number on the speed limit sign.
Yeah, just remember the fundamental strategies. Maintain a consistent speed, use your lanes properly, right for flowing with traffic, left for passing, and just stay constantly aware of the speeds around you, not just your own. These habits shift you from being reactive to being a proactive manager of your own risk.
We discussed that driving slower than the limit is usually legal, but you could still get a ticket for impeding traffic because it creates a hazard. So consider this. We've seen that on the highway, merging too slowly is actually more dangerous than merging a little too fast. In the eyes of safety, and even the law, how often is safety really defined by sticking to a single number versus driving at a speed that is truly reasonable and prudent for the specific flow of traffic around you at that exact moment?
That's a great question.
It's the gray area worth mulling over on your next drive.
Until next time, drive safe and keep managing that differential.
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.